Hello, everybody. I came back to this song. I wrote it a few years ago, recorded it, arranged it, produced it, had my friend Lucy Woodward sing on it, and then I got sidetracked by other things and never really finished it. So then I got back to it, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I added some guitar and bass. Everything else had been recorded, the drums, the horns, and the vocals, and the percussion. But I added some MIDI keyboards and some live guitars, and that was, again, I kind of abandoned it for a little while, and I just recently came back to it and thought, well, I should at least mix this and see what I can do with it. It's a cute little song. I'll warn you right now, the name of the song is Kicked in the Balls by Love, so if that offends you, you might need to not watch this, but I don't even think we're going to get to the lyrics. I want to talk to you about mixing big band, but this isn't like mixing a real big band. I recorded everybody, two people at a time, two trumpets, and then they did the third and fourth parts, same with the trombones, and then the same kind of thing with the saxes. A lot of times when I do this, we do put up some room mics, but for some reason on this one, I didn't even bother. I had just gotten the Ocean Way room plug-in thing, and that's a studio I would have loved to have recorded at, so I was like, let's see if this makes it sound like it was recorded in this room. So what I want to show you are a couple things about how to mix music that was not recorded like a big band, try to make it sound a little bit more like it was recorded together with the big band. So let me just play you a few bars of this with the whole thing. You already know how to mix a rhythm section. This is not even like a traditional jazz rhythm section. It's more like a rock rhythm section with these swing horns on top of it. So it wouldn't even be a good. There's nothing you can really learn from what I did with the drums and the percussion and everything. But if you guys ask for it, we can jump into that another time. But here we go. So here are the horns. You can see I got 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, 5 saxes. I got a solo. There were a couple other extra bass trombone notes here that you'll see what's going on there in a little bit. So let's just listen to this from here. I love writing for trombones. So you hear what's going on. Now I'm going to just let you hear the horns. This is just the horns with all the processing that's done to them included. And wait for it, this cool little bit. It's kind of like Batman. So what do I have going on here? Okay, let's look at the trumpets. It's actually very simple. I think when I originally did this, I made it a lot more complicated. I had a lot more plugins going on, did more things to the individual tracks. But you can see trumpet 1 through 4, I have them panned to the right, no more than 3 o'clock. I mean, actually, not even more like 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock to like 2:30. Can't tell you exactly why I did that. Then these are going to the trumpet bus over here. There's no, as you can see, there's no processing on those tracks, no plugins. Then on here, I'm not doing very much either. I have this slate thing. We got a little boost. On the trumpets, it's good to kick them up a little bit around 300, but find the frequencies that work. This actually will give them a little more weight. Even if they're playing high stuff, it sort of balances it in an interesting way. I always add a little of about 5K over here because I read somewhere that that's what Bruce Swedian, whatever his name is, did on the Count Basie stuff. And, I'm not going to argue with that. The trimmer is up a lot. And, partly that's because I record things too hot and then have to redo the gain staging. So from here, this is going to another bus called all horns, and that's what we're hearing. So on here, so all the horns, including the reverbs and the rooms, are coming into here. And I have this tape thing, and I am pushing it kind of hard. Everything's opening up on the other screen. I have this, and you'll see when we open it, it's really just maybe a dB, very, very little compression, because you really don't need a lot, and you really don't want a lot. A little distortion, a little clipping, analog clipping is nice, but you don't really want compression. That said, I then have another compressor with the aggressive setting, but the mix is, you can see at 37%. So it's barely noticeable. Then I have a multi-band compressor here, but we'll get to that in a second. So then basically the same thing is going on with the bones over here. So why don't I, instead of doing let's just do the trumpets first. So are they playing? That's one of my favorite thing to do, a sort of stacked fourth pyramid. Always reminds me of Chips when I do that. And then with the trombones, let's hear the trombones on their own. There's something pretty clever going on in the arrangement there that I can explain another time. But there's an extra note that the bones are playing that the other instruments aren't, and it's giving it this sort of interesting rhythm, like a junk, a junk, a junk. Maybe listen for it. It's right around at that point. I should also say the bones I pan a little differently. I have the bass bone at around 1 o'clock, and then the rest of them between 2, 2:30, 3 o'clock. Again, not so wide. But what I have them going to, they go to the all horns, and then I'm sending them to a reverb and to a room emulation. So both of the brass are going to this room emulator, which is, as I said, it's the Ocean Way. I'm using the closer one and the farther one. I don't know why I'm not using that one. I kind of feel like, I'm paying for it. Let's use it, but 2 is good enough for now. Let me show you what that sounds like. When you traditionally record these instruments in a real studio like Ocean Way or Capitol, the room mics on the horns are really, really important. It's like a big part of the sound. It might be more than half of the sound. The spot mics are important too, but they're not used like the way they are in this case, where each instrument is cleanly on each one. They're almost like just having more microphones in the recording session. You can't really get the separation that you can the way I did it, because I only have 2 people playing at a time. Anyway, here, so the room is really important. So let me play the brass and without this, and then I'll add it in. You'll hear how much it's doing. Let me find a better chunk. Let me start it here. That's nice and tight in here. Okay, so then I have the saxes going to the same exact plugin. The only thing is, right before I did this video, I did change it, and I know I'm jumping around. I did change the room to the other room because I thought, well, why am I using two different plugins to do the same thing? I should at least change the room. So I did. But I also did something else, and I haven't forgotten about the saxes. We'll get to it. But I did something, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I put this plug-in, this utility, and I swapped the left and the right before it goes into the room. And the reason I did that is I kind of want the room to come from the other side, if that makes sense. I thought it would maybe fill it out a little bit. I did A/B it. It didn't really make a whole lot of difference. For some reason, the rooms are not very wide themselves. They just add this depth to everything. So let's go now to the saxes. And you could see how I have them panned here. This time they're going off to the left. The bari sax is the first one over. And then again, they go to about 3 o'clock. You don't want them really going all around your head. First of all, you won't really hear it. And also it doesn't sound very natural. And I did do a little bit of notching because there was some buildup. That was mostly because the saxes were being played in the same room and two of them were being played together. And there were some resonances, but I didn't go crazy with it because I did that once before, and it was one of those things where I had all these crazy cues on everything, and then I would turn them off, and I'm like, I don't even know does it sound better with it, without? So this time I started fresh, and I really only took out a little bit of what was troublesome. So here are the saxes. And they have the same thing, the sax room, and you hear it without it, it's just thinner. See? So that's a really great plug-in. I'm sure you could get the same result with other things if you know what you're doing, but I don't, and this one was perfect, and I do record a lot of horns, so it was great. Then I have just about everything going to a horn reverb. I'm using this Slate one because it's new, and I was checking it out, and I'm using the Berkasti Hall because that's what Al Schmidt was using. He was using a Berkasti, so I thought I'll try that. And so here are all the horns with the reverb, and I'll mute it out at some point, and you can hear what it's adding. Oops. Oops. See, it just adds all that length at the end. It's hard to know what's too much and what's not enough. Sometimes I put it on and I think, that sounds like too much. And then I'll actually listen to a real contemporary big band album and I'll realize they put so much more on there. So it's hard to tell. But now what I want to show you, the last thing that I did on this horns bus is, and I got to tell you, when I came up with this, I thought I was probably one of the most clever guys around. So this song has vocals. Let me show you where the vocals are. Here. Let me unmute. Well, this is like
So listen up, Jack, get a nice pack, catch your breath while you still can. You gotta sit tight when you feel like you got kicked by Jackie Chan, or maybe Jean-Claude Van Damme.
So what I thought was, you can hear this is very overwritten. There's horns kind of going on throughout the whole song. And when I do mix this, I have to bring the horns down a lot because they can be very distracting. And the vocal is definitely more important. Even though I really love the writing on the horns, I really want to hear them. I love what's going on, the interplay. I like how they're working with the vocal, but I have to sort of, sacrifice the horns a little bit for the sake of the vocal. And I'm okay with that, or mostly okay with that. But when they are playing, we have the horns kind of panned out between the brass and the saxes. We have them panned out, like, let's say 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We have the vocal going down the middle. Now our horns are in the middle a lot too. Even though they're panned, they're very right there in the middle. I mean, if we solo the trumpets and the trombones, which are all panned right, and we look in here, you're going to see it's almost, see what I mean? It's just a little bit more to the right. So, wait, right or left? Yeah, they're going to the right. And you saw it was just slightly more in the right there. So there's a lot of horn in the middle. And that's great on an instrumental. But because we have this vocal down the middle, what I thought is, well, why don't I pull down some of these important frequencies, like the real meat of the vocal, between 500 and like 3 or 4K, maybe even a little less, bring it in a little bit. And let's bring those frequencies down. But of course, we don't want to do that with an equalizer, because then when she's not singing, we're going to lose those. We don't have those frequencies there, which we want. That not only is that the meat of the vocal, it's the meat of the horns. So we don't want to lose that. So what I did is I put a multi-band compressor here on that frequency range, but I have it keyed in by the vocal. So what is going to happen is when she is singing, it's going to pull those frequencies down. Not a ton. Look, maybe 3 dB at most. We could try it a little more drastic, and that'll pull these frequencies out of the mix, but only at the moments where she's actually singing. So I thought that was pretty clever. But then I went even a little further. I said, wait a minute, I can make this stereo or mid or side or stereo. So I made it all mids. So only in the mids are these, because that's the only place where the vocal is anyway. The vocal's going right down the middle. Only in that area are those frequencies going to be taken out of the horns. So it's pretty clever, right? So you have this big wide horn section, brass and saxes pumping away, but then the vocal frequencies, we make a little hole for them, but not for the whole time, just for when she's singing, and not for the whole stereo spread, but just for the middle. So let me show you what that looks like. It's not like something you're going to be able to hear night and day. I could A/B it, but just kind of knowing I'm doing it makes me feel pretty cool, even though it's not necessarily having a great impact. I know that 3 dB is a lot, and I know that it would clean it up, and it does give a little bit of room. So let me show you what it looks like.
Up, Jack, get a nice pack, catch your breath while you still can. You gotta sit tight when you feel like you got kicked by Jackie Chan, or maybe Jean-Claude Van Damme. So now you wonder.
Let me go back here and show you that when she's not singing, nothing's happening.
Na, 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 da, da, na. You've been kicked in the balls by lead.
So I thought that was pretty clever. I mean, once you understand what this is, what's happening here, you could start to apply it to a lot of things. I mean, if side chaining is a really cool tool to have, and you can get pretty creative with it. A lot of times it's used as more of a gate, or to like you key a compressor so it pulls the volume down. I like this idea of have it just pulling down certain frequencies. So I'd never seen anybody do that. I invented it, I guess you could say. You could call this the Dave Ricard technique, or maybe it's been around forever. I don't know. I like to take credit for things I didn't do. So if you enjoyed this, just whatever, hit subscribe, shoot me a note, leave a comment. You know the deal. And if you want to hear more of this song, let me know and we'll go into it in a little more depth next time. Okay? Have a good one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.